Alright, so I was sitting here, grinding Sea Beast and Sailor Piece, as you do for C2. And, a video hit my feed, my YouTube feed from Balake, amazing content creator. Oh, dude, his videos are amazing. They're great. I think what he does is amazing. How many times can I say that word? Hey, maybe I'll say it again. You never know, right? He does great things. I love what he talks about, and I love his takes on stuff. And today he was talking about what if tower defense games got rid of the 0.1% traits. I was very intrigued by that thought because, man, every tower defense game, even if they do release it, you get the units, you gotta get the 0.1% trait, you wait a week, next update hit, you get the new units, you gotta get the 0.1% trait, the units from the previous update, gone, tossed. They're trash now. And that could be more of a power creep thing, to be fair. That you can say that's more power creep than it has to do with the traits themselves, which is understandable. However, I wanted to take a moment and kind of give my take on maybe what I would do with a tower defense game that might not have a 0.1% traits. No traits at all. Look at OG ASTD. People love that game. Never had traits. Anime Adventures was maybe I'm not too sure, but Anime Adventures came out. It had the unique, right? That was the start of it all. So, and here we are now, right? But people are going back to OG STD because they're apparently going to update that. They're going to continue that game, which is crazy. That's actually really good. If you want me to make some videos going from a legit noob to pro because I've never touched that game, let me know in the comments. I will do it. Screw it, why not? If they're going to keep updating the game and the game doesn't have any traits, it could be a breath of fresh air, honestly. 100%. I'd be interested in it. I was going to say 100% again, as you heard. So going off his video, my take on what I would do with the tower defense game with no 0.1% traits is actually surprisingly almost here. You may be asking, what do you mean almost here? Do you know something, that we don't? No. I don't know nothing, unfortunately. No. What I mean by that is Universal Tower Defense kind of already has a good structure for that without traits. So, obviously, everything comes with a pro and a con, a good and a bad, right? So, Universal Tower Defense and an accessory, right? You just get two damage pieces, you get an elemental damage accessory, right? And if you have the gear set, it does different things. So I was thinking they could kind of maybe do that. Now, no, we're not doing no 0.01, 0.1, 0.5, no, none of that drop rates. We're not replacing traits. We're not replacing a 0.1 trait to put a 0.1, percent gear piece, like a chest or something, in a legend state. No. Keep the rates similar to Universal Tower Defenses, right? Where it's a 40, I think, maybe a 30 or 40% chance, right? If you do the hardest difficulty, you get it super easy. Keep it like that, right? I'm not saying that you have to replace a quote-unquote grind, right? Because people macro for rerolls, right? They have to grind stages for the rerolls to get these 0.1% traits. But I'm not saying you replace that macro time for the trait rerolls and you make a macro time for gear sets. That's not what I'm talking about. No. Which macroing is a whole separate issue with tower defense games and the staleness of it, right? But if UTD, Universal Tower Defense, did not have traits, I think the game would still be crazy enjoyable. Obviously they can't just take the traits out, because everything they've built it on. But because they have the gear sets which give you damage bonus, right? They give you elemental boost, which ties into my next point of being tower defense games have just don't care about elements, which is fine, I guess. Because, I guess maybe people don't want to, get a certain elemental team and take into a stage, right? Because maybe... But the thing is without traits, you don't have to worry about, oh, man, my water type Whitebeard. Oh, I didn't get Monarch on him, so now I can't use him on my water team, right? But if there's no traits, oh, that Whitebeard, that's a water type can just go on your team. You don't have to roll on him. You don't have to do nothing for him. Maybe you gotta go 10 minutes, go get just a 60% or like a damage gear piece for him, right? And then like, okay, now you go on the stage. You can go do it, right? But the balancing for the games would be immensely better. Sure, power creep is still will always be a thing, but it doesn't have to be as strong, right? Like, you can make the new units attack, you know, like their DPS maybe like just 5% better. Like, sure, they could be a little better than the previous, you know, unit stuff, but like it doesn't need to be a wide gap, right? Sure, maybe you can argue the passives will still need to be a little more complex. I don't really think it has to be that way. I think if maybe you've limited to just like a unit having only 2 or 3 passives, you know, or maybe a unit could have 2 passives for them specifically, and then they could have an elemental passive, right? So that water type Whitebeard that you don't have to worry about needing a monarch on him, maybe he has 2 passives, right, for himself that kind of buffs him, or maybe like a team. We'll kind of get more into it, but like, let's just say he has that 3rd passive that's an elemental passive, where it would be if he is on a water type team, you know, if there are, obviously this would get more complicated, but let's say in the beginning we'll start out, if there's a water type person with him, he will give him 10% range, right? Like every water type on the team gets 10% range, right? And then maybe later down the line, it'll be like, oh, if you have 2 or 3 units on the water team, they'll get like maybe a 5% attack boost, you know? If your whole team, if all 6 of your characters are water team, then maybe you get like a minus 10% SBA, right? Like, you know, they could do something like that later on as well, which I mean will most likely happen when there's no traits, right? But I think that could be something they could do, because elements are always forgotten about. Anime Adventures did elements. It was really good because you had to use the elements despite you even having unique. I mean, obviously, if you had unique, sometimes those units will still just beat the stage no matter the element debuff or whatever. But, you know, elements are a thing of the past, you know, people, which is fine. You know, sometimes you gotta move on to the new stuff, right? Leave the old stuff in the, you know, in the past, bring in the new stuff, right? But I still think elements can be a fun and challenging thing for a game, right? Because you can only do so much with a tower defense game, obviously, right? And I think one of the things that really kind of like hurt Vanguards, for me personally, are Memorias. I think Memorias are stupid, considering you have to get Monarch, but then you have to, like, units in Vanguards now take 20 to 30 of like 4 essences, you know, 3 or 4 essences, right? But then you have to get their Memoria, and then those also take like 20 or 30 essences, and then it's like you're still capped at having 50 essence of 50 purple essence. If a unit takes 30 purple essence and then the Memoria takes another 30 purple essence, you need to get 10, and you're only allowed to have 50. You know, then you gotta go grind for that. Memoria is really just like killed Vanguards for me, honestly. Like, it makes me just like really not want to play it. I mean, I still play Vanguards, I do all the updates, but I just really don't even evolve units, honestly, that aren't just the Vanguards, right? Like, that's kind of all I play for now. But so elements, I think that would be great. Maybe they can have elemental passive. You could even go Anime World Tower Defense, rest in peace that game, of categories, leader skills, right? Like Dokkan Battle. You could do like that, right? Give that type of concept to a different dev team. Maybe they could do something with that, right? I think that's what they could do. I think that would help out the tower defense community a lot more, right? We need a fresh take, and I think a game maybe not having these traits, like Balake said, I think that's honestly, I think that's a really good risk to take. If it doesn't work out, it sucks. Yeah, and it's like you put all this time, money, and resources into the game, and then people don't like that idea. But you also got to think, OGSTD, no traits, people love that game. I think it is a good risk to take. I think it is interesting. You just got to figure out, you know, it just makes you spend more time on the balancing side, or maybe making more difficult content, which is why I say, you know, you can have a gear set to kind of help boost the units a little bit. Elements, a long forgotten thing, or you could take the AWTD route, categories, passives, right, to help boost your units, something like that. And you may be asking yourself, well, I mean, if games kind of already do that, and we see AWTD, you know, with that, like, well, what makes you think that other people want to go do that then? If that game's dead, you know, and gone, well, it could always be a plethora of things. Could be devs, could be the team, just could be something else. But AWTD's biggest problem is that new players can't get into the game. It's super difficult, and honestly, the game just doesn't even really look all that great. Honestly, right? Like, it could use like a whole visual revamp. So that's why I think you take something and you gotta remake it. You gotta revamp it, right? So if a new game came out right now that was no traits, that was like OG ASTD, I think it would go crazy. Or maybe even AWTD, if someone said, you know, that's a good idea. Let me do some categories or some passives or something, you know, like a different gacha game, right? I think it would work. I think it's worth the shot to try it because it's something new, it's something refreshing, right? But I know you're gonna say all the cons of like, well, they're gonna make us grind for like gears, or they're gonna make us grind even more, like the unit drops, or like grinding a unit is gonna be way worse. I mean, sure, you know, I could see that some dev or some like, you know, game probably will want that, right? Where they're gonna be like, well, we need playtime, right? So we gotta make you really work for this 0.01%, right? But like, it doesn't have to be that way, right? Games can be fun without needing to like be a grind fest, right? We need to be able to put the macro down and play the game. And with global matchmaking now being a thing, I think Universal Tower Defense, like I said, right now, I think that might actually be the best tower defense game right now. Not even, no joke, no cap, like real, you know. Universal Tower Defense has global matchmaking. They made a Beru raid with forced you to have 12 people. You can only place one unit down. It's amazing. I think it's great. You know, people worried about it, but they said, hey, we're adding global matchmaking. Don't worry, right? Because that was the bad part about the Modder event. There was no global matchmaking. You had to go on Discord. You had to get people in the lobby and just do it. With global matchmaking, these stages that force you to play with people, you know, are not a worry anymore. It's like, hey, we want you to play this raid with 5 people, and you're like, oh man, but like, can't I just use my 0.1%? You know, can I just use my team of monarchs and just beat it? You know, like, you know. But it's like, no, we want you to play with people, right? That's what tower defense games are for. They're for you to strategize and come up with a team to beat the stage, but also to work with people. You need to work with people. We've forgotten about that. Everyone wants to try to solo everything, and then new players can't play the game because everyone does everything by themselves and don't help out anyone, right? That's a problem. So that's my take on this. I think Universal Tower Defense I think it's the best tower defense game right now. If they got rid of traits, I think that might be my favorite tower defense game for a long time. It'd be hard to top it, but they're in the right direction. I hope that game gets a lot more love. I hope they keep working on it. I hope a lot more people try to play the game. It's worth it. The one thing about the game I don't like about, you know, Glaze aside, the one thing I don't like a Universal Tower Defense, dupes. I don't like the etherealization thing. I don't like needing dupes for a unit. I don't like needing to, you know, macro a stage to get 6 copies of a unit. But they have ways around it, right? Like, you could just trade any unit, get a shard. They put shards in shops and everything. They've lowered the amount of runs for pity, so it's okay now, but like, I still just don't personally like it all that much. But yeah, if you guys have any better ideas, please let me know. I would love to discuss like a tower defense game that doesn't have 0.1% traits, or maybe you have a better idea on how they could balance, or maybe like fix power creep, you know. But I think without 0.1% traits, I think a tower defense game could be really fun, really strategic, as a tower defense is supposed to be, right? Strategic, strategize. And I think power creep won't be as strong, and you shouldn't have, you know, we could put the macros down, right? And you can also argue leechers, right? Will always be a thing, right? You queue up for a raid and there's going to be a leech. That's inevitable in every game. I understand that's why people are like, well, I'd rather just use my full Monarch team and go in by myself and just beat it, you know, and then I'm done. You're right, 100%. That's what, you know, you don't want to deal with global matchmaking, because there's going to be leechers, there's going to be people that tiny tasks, you know, informal tasks, whatever, macro it, right? And then just load in the stage and just like, you know, just take it for themselves. That does suck, but I don't think there's anything you can do about that realistically. I think it's just, yeah. But that's my take on it. As I said already, you know, if you like, you know, please like the video. If you think I have some good ideas, please let me know what you guys think. you know, what a tower defense game could do, or maybe how you would personally just fix a tower defense game in general with how things have been. And hey, hopefully maybe there's a group out there that's trying to get some devs together that kind of hear the cries of the community saying these tower defense games are mundane. We're tired of like the macro fest, you know, and they come up with something new finally. Or maybe they take that big risk and just remake a relic of the past, you know, like I said, AWTD and OGASTD, and kind of make that game their own and do something different like that. Who knows? I don't know. But yeah, that's the video. There's a video on the left side of your screen. Make sure you click that. YouTube thinks you'll like it, and I hope you will too. I don't know what it is. So, and good luck grinding and whatever you're doing, and catch y'all later. These sea beasts aren't gonna beat themselves.